Okay, Michiamo. I'm just getting a few, sending a couple of messages out and we're going to get started. In the meantime, can somebody send me a message in the chat? Let me know you can hear and see clearly. Give me 1 second. All right, so we're gonna send out a message right quick and we're gonna get started. If you have any, see some viewers in the chat already. If you have any questions, you can post the questions in the chat. In order to post questions, you have to you have to log in. And if you don't have if you don't have an account, a Ustream account, you can just sign up for one real quick, and then you can ask questions. You can view the chat, but if you want to ask questions, you have to get a username and log in. I just want to send this out to Facebook right quick, and then we'll get started. Okay, we just want to make sure it's working correctly. All right, and I'm also going to post a couple of links that the discussion will be based on for those who haven't checked them out already. Okay, made I say, so you can hear, cool. All right. So if you haven't checked this link out already, this is the Adebisa link. And we're also going to give you the link to the Madanechi. Okay, so those are the two main links you can check out now and throughout the broadcast. If you have any questions, preliminary questions, you can post them in the chat. The link we just put up is for the Madanechi. This is our most recent publication, soft cover publication, Divine Law and Divine Hate. We just released that. We have the free ebook download. We also have the softcover version. So we'll be getting into that tonight. All right. Okay. Michiamo, Medinde, Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan, Eneye, Joada, Medinde, Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan means my name is Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan of Akwamu Mine, Amarukai Tifimu, which is the Akwamu nation in North America. So what we're going to talk about today is Adebisa, which is the Akhan term for divination. So we're going to get into that. Let me do one thing real quick, and then we'll get started. Okay, so now, a lot of different questions have to do with Adebisa. We have an Adebisa page on the website, which we just posted the link, dealing with divination. We want to get into the nature and function, what divination is, and how it's used, what is its utility, what is its value with respect to our individual lives, communally, and with respect to our ancestral nation building, nation restoration. So first, we're doing this on Joada, which is in Akhan, that's Monday. In Akhan culture, every day of the week, the 7-day week. Nawochwe means the 7 days, that's the name of a week. It's actually 7-day inclusive week, so the first day and the last day of the week are included in the count. So Nda means days, Awochwe means 8, but it's Sunday through Sunday, or Akwesi Da through Akwesi Da. The first and the last day is counted twice, so that's why they call it Nawochwe, the 8 days, but that's a 7-day week. 7-day inclusive week, and what we deal with is each day of the week there's an abosom, a divinity that governs the solar, lunar, or planetary body that governs the day of the week. So Akwesi Da Sunday is the day of the Oria, the sun. So basically the sun's energy is dominating the planet. On Joada, or Monday, is the day of Ajo and Ajua, major abosom, forces in nature that govern the moon. So it is Joada, or the cool day. Ajo means cool. It also has to do with the moon, and the moon's energy is magnetic energy. The same in English is moon day. They got these different days and concepts from us. The energy of the moon, or the Osorane, is in between the sun and the earth. So the sun's energy is filtered through the moon and then bathes the earth at the first hour of sunrise. So the earth is governed by that particular celestial body. Benada, Abenada, Tuesday, the planet Benna, or Abena, which they call Mars. That particular planet's energy, planets in between the earth and the sun, so the sun's energy filters through that planet, is conditioned by it, and then bathes the earth. And then, of course, we on earth, we are affected by that. So each day of the week is governed by one of the solar, lunar, or planetary bodies, and the forces in nature that animate those solar, lunar, and planetary bodies. So the days of the week are named after that, and then we have Akradin, or soul names, that govern that. We're doing this particular presentation on Joada on Monday because this is the particular abosom, the female abosom, Ajowa, who's called Aset in ancient Kemet, Odua in the Yoruba tradition, Minona in the Fon, and Eve, Vodun tradition, the Great Mother. She's a particular abosom that gave us the oracular system that we utilize, the major oracular system we utilize in Akwamu Mind, Amadukai Tifimu, and which we talk about on the website. So that's the reason we're doing this on this particular day. It carries the energy of that abosom. Now, let's get into Adebisa. In our Akhan culture, Ade, or Adie, means thing, object, entity. Bisa is a verb that means to consult, or to inquire, or to ask. So when somebody says, me call Bisa, meaning me, I, call, go, Bisa, I go ask, me call Bisa, it's a reference to I'm going to ask, I'm going to query, I'm going to consult. And they're talking about consulting the oracle. It's a phrase saying I'm going to get a reading, going to get consultation from the abosom, from the Nanonoman Samampo. The abosom is a term in Akhan culture for deities of forces in nature, the divine spirit forces that animate the sun, moon, stars, planets, earth mother, rivers, oceans, mountains, fire, wind, and so forth. It's like you have a physical body, but your spirit animates your physical body. The earth mother, and there are two earth mother divinities in our Akhan culture, Asasiya 4 and Asasiya, spirits that animate this physical earth. The sun, the Oriya, is a physical orb, but they are major spiritual forces that animate and enliven that physical orb. The same with the Osorane, the moon, with the various Ochin and Soroma, the planets, the oceans, rivers, and so forth. It's just like with animals, plant life, mineral life, and so forth. We have physical bodies, but our spirits animate these bodies. The spirits that animate suns, moons, stars, and so forth in our Akhan culture are called abosom. In the Yoruba tradition, they're called the Orisha. In the Vodun tradition, they're called the Vodu. In the Igbo tradition, they're called the Arusi. So every Afurakani, Afurakaini ethnic group, based on our language, we have a term for the forces that govern creation. These forces are children of the Great Mother and the Great Father. In ancient Kemet and ancient Kanit, ancient so-called Egypt and Nubia, but ancient Kemet and Kanit, original names for these ancient civilizations and territories, black civilizations, Afurakani, Afurakaini, or African civilizations. That most ancient name for the Great Father is Amen. And of course, this is the name that the whites and their offspring took, corrupted, and began to use at the end of their prayers to their false divinities. They say Amen, or Muslims say Amin at the end of their prayers to their fictional character, cartoon character, so-called deities like Allah and Yahweh and so forth. But Amen is the great God. Amen means hidden, but it also means stable, permanent, and abiding. Amenet is the great mother, the great goddess. There's Amen and Amenet. There's never been a time that there was just Amen. There's never been a time when there was just Amenet. Amen and Amenet are the great father and great mother that complement. They are complementing opposites. They function in harmony with one another, in balance with one another. They are the great being. The children of Amen and Amenet are the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodu. In ancient Kemet, the term used Ntoru, Ntorotu, spelled Ntr in the Medutu in the hieroglyphics. In our Akhan cultures, vocalized as Ntoro. Very often people arbitrarily put an E in between the consonants and say Neter or Neteru, or Netertu, Netert, meaning goddess, Neter meaning God, force in nature, divine force in nature. Vocalized in Akhan is Ntoro, Ntorot. These are just another title. We have the same title in Akhan as we have in ancient Kemet. Various forms of the titles. These are the forces in nature. So they're the children of the Great Father and the Great Mother. So just like you have a body, a physical body, and we always use this analogy, you also have within your physical body smaller bodies that regulate order within the great body. And those smaller bodies are your organs, and they regulate order. And then those are the children of the great body. Those are like the divinities. The great body is the supreme being, Amen and Amenet, the great being. The organs within the great divine body are the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodu, and they regulate order in the body. They are embodiments of divine order in the created universe. And then the children of the organs within our bodies are the cells. Liver cells, brain cells, bone marrow cells, and so forth. And they are children of the organs. And when the cells of the organs serve the organs and support the functions of the organs, then they're supporting the body at the same time. When liver cells support liver functions, their parent organ, then they're serving the whole body at the same time. When bone marrow cells serve the skeletal system, their parent structure, then they're serving the whole body at the same time. We are cells as Afurakani, Afurakaitni people, plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afurakani, Afurakaitni human life, meaning African human life, and African or Afurakani, Afurakaitni human life only, because we're the only created human beings. And we'll talk about the origin of the whites and their offspring in the course of this discussion. But the only authentic created human beings, Afurakani, Afurakaitni people. And that was the end of the creation of human beings, and we began to proliferate after that point. But we are the cells, just like plant life, animal life, mineral life, and us, cells within the great organs, within the great divine body. So when we live in harmony with the parent organs that govern us, then we're living in harmony with the supreme being, the great body, at the same time. So the most ancient name of the supreme being, Amen is the great father, Amenet is the great mother. Amen and Amenet have titles. One of the titles of Amen is Adi Amen. Ani means stable, permanent, just like men means stable and permanent. Ani can also be spelled with an I, the I in the Medutu, the hieroglyphic symbol for the I, and it can be pronounced Ani, A-N-I, or A-R-I, Ari, or Eri, Eni. In Akhan culture, the word for I is Eni. You'll find a form of Amen where they spell it with the I first, Ari or Eni, Ani, and then Amen. So Aniyame is the I, the stable one, talking about Amen's stability, his omniscience, all-seeing, and so forth. Ariyame became Oniyame and Onyame in Akhan culture. So you'll find that Onyame or Oniyame is the great god in Akhan culture. Onyame Wa is the great mother. You'll find variations, Onyame, Onyambe in the Lotsi tradition, Njambe, and Zambe in the Congo tradition, for example. You'll find variations of the name of Amen, Aniyame, from Akhan, Congo, Lotsi, Herero, in Senegal, in Nyamia Ama. You'll find the variations of the name Amen and Amenet or Ama across the continent, north, central, south, and east, talking about the great mother and the great father, because we're the same people who migrated from the ancient Nile Valley civilizations of Khanit and Kemet, migrated west, central, south, also north and east, further east, and so forth. There's genetic information, for example, the Y chromosomal haplogroup found as part of the group of Ra-Mesu III, as well as two Amen, often called King Tut, misnomer King Tut. They found that the same haplogroup, for example, in Ra-Mesu, often called Ramses, misnomer Ramses, mispronounced Ramses, that haplogroup E1B1A can be found clustered most heavily in West Africa, or West Africa, found in 50 to 75% of all black people in America. So we have the same Y chromosomal haplogroup because we're directly descendant from the same group. Not only are we directly descended genetically, then you'll find culturally we still worship the same divinities, the forces in nature, by the same names. If you look at the language, you take a hieroglyphic dictionary and an Akhan dictionary, or Kikongo, or Dogon, or Chiluba, or whatever group you want to use, you'll find the same words with the same concepts, with multi-tiered, multi-layered, multifaceted cosmological concepts intact in both languages. So, as a comparison, so we can show linguistically, genetically, and cosmologically we're the same people. And of course, archaeologically, the archaeology bears it out as well. So we're the same people. We migrated from the Nile Valley civilizations. We migrated to various parts of the continent. Then we were taken, some of us were taken from West Africa, Central, and brought to America. So it's a continuity. So that's why you find the name Nyame, Nyamewa, variations of it all across the continent. So you have the Great Mother and the Great Father. From the the earliest writings, the earliest religious compositions yet unearthed, you will find Amen and Amenet together, the great being. Then you have the divinities. They're the organs within the body of the supreme being. Then the cells of the organs are us: plant life, animal life, mineral life, Afuraikani, human life. That's a structure. That's an order. That's the order of creation. Our bodies are a reflection of that order. Amen and Amenet are like the Afuraikani male, Afuraikani female. We're a microcosm of that macrocosm. And we have organs, children of the great body. We have cells, and these cells and organs interact in a harmonious fashion. If they get off track, then there is dis-ease. And then we seek to restore balance to the body so we can remove the dis-ease and continue to execute our function. Adebisa is a means by which we do that. So Adebisa, through Adebisa, we learn just oracular divination. That's what it's called, Adebisa. Through Adebisa, we learn from the Abosom, from the Nananoman Samanfo, the elder ancestresses and ancestors. the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, we learn the nature of past, present, and potential future circumstances and events in relation to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, measured against the standard of divine order, of Inyame wa Inyame and Sheshe, which we call in the Akhan tradition, Amenet, Amen, Sesher. Sesher in ancient Kemet means plan, arrangement, a divine plan, divine arrangement. And Shesher is the same term in Akhan, which means plan or arrangement. So Inyame wa Inyame in Sheshe is the same as Amenet, Amen, Sesher, which means the Supreme Being's, the Great Mother and Great Father's plan or arrangement. Through Adebisa, we seek, we consult, we learn what is happening right now, the nature of past events, what is going on in the present right now, and what possible future circumstances will arise if we stay on the same track, based on, which is relevant to our thoughts, intentions, and actions against the standard, measured against the standard of divine order. It's always about the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That's what Adebisa operationalizes for us. Afurakani Afurakaini, or African ancestral religion, is the ritual incorporation of law, divine law, and the ritual restoration of divine balance. It's expansive and contracted. It's like inhalation, exhalation. You incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities you need in order to harmonize with divine order, and then you reject those things, objects, deeds, and or entities you need to reject in order to restore your thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. We are encoded with a specific function to execute in the world. So let's deal with that, and then Adebisa helps us to get back to that. When somebody makes their transition, their spirit leaves the body, just like every night you disrobe and you leave the clothes, you put them in dirty clothes hamper or whatever, and you put on something else. That's just like your spirit leaving your body. Your body is eventually buried, and your spirit, after a specific time frame, most of our people, we make our transition to the ancestral realm. Now, some people, of course, because of what they have gone through, because of anxiety, because of disorder, they get caught. They're hanging out earthbound around the earth, causing problems for people. We use the example of some people at stop signs or something like that. If they got shot at a stop sign, their spirit is still hanging around the place where their blood went into the ground, and they're causing distractions. Every time people drive by that stop sign and stop, the spirit is still anxious. The spirit is still upset. The spirit is still reaching out. The spirit is still disordered. So they project that kind of disordered energy and distract their average driver who's a little bit receptive. And they get distracted and they get into a car crash, into a wreck. And then it's known that that particular corner has a lot of wrecks. Now, people who are spiritually inclined, that's a common occurrence. So people who know something about spirituality, whether we were on the continent back in the day and there was a certain area where a lot of deaths were occurring, or even today here in America, we know if something like that is occurring, people who are receptive, they will go out to that area, and those who are clairvoyant, those who are clairaudient, they can see that that discarnate spirit, that ancestral spirit still hanging out there, and then they will ritually communicate with that spirit to help that spirit move on and stop creating, disorder. So that's what happens with some earthbound spirits. People get murdered, people die when they believe that they shouldn't have died so early, or they're upset about the fact that they died at a specific time and they're still trying to hang around as opposed to moving on. And we have funerary practices to help spirits disconnect from this just being earthbound and move forward to the ancestral realm so they can live a harmonious existence and work on their own spiritual development, because eventually they will reincarnate through their clan. But the average person in our community who wasn't disordered, who makes their transition, their spirit disengages from the body's buried during the funeral ceremonies. They spend some time in our Akhan culture, about 40 days, around family members, visiting them in dreams, coming to them at different times of the day in various ways, making their certain song come on the radio, different things like that, directing their attention to certain things like a song coming on the radio or things that they used to like. They'll direct your attention to specific things, making you direct your attention to a picture that you hadn't seen in a long time of them. They're trying to remind you of different things, a number of different things that they do to communicate with you and still make some connection. But after about 40 days, we have another ancestral observance for that individual to help them begin to make that journey to the ancestral realm. Eventually, they connect to the ancestral realm, reconnect with the other ancestresses and ancestors. In our Akhan culture, they're called Nsamanfo. And Nananom Nsamanfo are the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. Nsamanfo Pa, good ancestresses and ancestors. Of course, you have Nsamanfo Bani. Bani means evil in Akhan. Bani means evil or disordered in ancient Kemet. You have people who are, rapists, murderers, and so forth. We don't deal with those individuals just like we don't deal with them when they're here. When they're here, we kill them. If they're murderers and rapists and child molesters and so forth, we sanction them, kill them, punish them, based on what they've done. When they make their transition, we still keep ourselves away from them. We repel them. We don't pour libation to them. They don't become angels, quote unquote, just because they made their transition. They don't get a clean slate. There's a cause and effect. They created disorder. Disorder must come on them. So we don't pour libation to them. We don't, invoke them, evoke them through ritual practices and so forth. So you have that, but the average person isn't on that. So when they make their transition, they're in the ancestral realm amongst the other ancestresses and ancestors in Samanfo. At some point, generations down the line, it's time for them to reincarnate. It may be 100 years, it may be 150 years or whatever, but they reincarnate through the descent, through their ancestral blood circle, through their descendants, through their progeny. Before they incarnate, they're drawn up to Inyame wa Inyame, infused with a divine function to execute in the world, given an Akra, which is a soul, a divine consciousness. So when you look in ancient Kemet and you see the Ka, the soul, and Kaet is a female term for soul, it's a force. It's like your spirit's brain. It's like you have a body and you have a brain, which is a smaller body that regulates all the functions in the body. You have a spirit body called Sun Sum in Akhan. And you have a spiritual, quote-unquote, brain that's given to you. It's called Akra, male, Okra, or Okrawa, female. In Akhan culture, that's the Ka. The Kra is the Ka in ancient Kemet. The Krawa is the Kaet, or Kat, female in ancient Kemet. So you're a spirit, you go before Inyame wa Inyame, you're given a Ka. It's a divinity. It's a force that is assigned to you and dwells in the head region. During your everyday life, you feel that force, you experience it initially as a pull in various different directions. When you're in specific situations, you're trying to figure out what you need to do, what's in harmony with what's correct, order, you have a pull in the head in one direction and you're repelled from another direction. That's the Ka, that's the force dwelling within you. It is an aboson, it is an orisha, it is a vodou, it is your personal divinity. It is a drop from the ocean of consciousness of the Supreme Being. Just like you have a drop of water from the ocean, this is a drop of soul, or Kra, from the great Ka, the great Kaet, the consciousness or soul of the Supreme Being. So you have a force in nature, a personal divinity that you can communicate with, a deity that dwells within the head region that is assigned to you by Inyame wa Inyame to direct you throughout the course of your life. Encoded within the Kra, the spiritual brain, is the specific function you are to execute in the world and the means by which you are to execute that function. The function is twofold, a male and female aspect. In our Akhan culture is called Nkra and Nkrabia. So you have an Nkra and Nkrabia, a function to execute. That's a more proper definition instead of saying destiny. Like some people say somebody was destined to play basketball. That's not a function. A destiny or Nkrabia is a life focus or a so-called purpose. What is your function in the great divine body? the liver cells are designed and come into being to support liver functions. And when they support liver functions, then they support the whole body. Bone marrow cells support the skeletal system, and when they support those functions, they support the whole body. We are encoded with a specific function to execute within the great divine body. We may be assigned a fiery divinity, and we will manifest a fiery temperament because we need to bring that fiery kind of energy into the human sphere, the Afro-Akhan human sphere. Somebody else may have a watery, cool, introspective energy that's assigned to them. They operate accordingly because they're infused with that kind of energy. They need to bring that kind of energy into the world, into the human sphere, the Afro-Akhan human sphere. Everybody has a specific function. Afro-Akhan people only, because we're the only people that have Akra, Okrawa, divine consciousness. You have a specific function, and that is encoded within your Kra. So if you look at the book, the Okra complex, you have the brain, you have the cerebral cortex, you have the cerebrum and the cerebellum, and that fourfold structure. And we also show spiritually, you have the Unkra and Krabia, which governs the cerebrum. You have the She and the Shebia, which deals with the motive force that you're given to execute the function. So you have a function to execute in the world, a specific manner in which you need to function in the world, and then you're given a configuration of energy to execute that function. You're not just given a blueprint, you're given the requisite energy complex for you to execute that function. If you have a fiery function, then you need to be given fiery energy so you can execute that function. If you're given a watery cool function, you need to be given a configuration of watery cool receptive energy so you can execute that function. So you're given an Nkra and Krabia a function, and you're given She and Shebia the capacity to execute that function. That is encoded within your spirit brain, just like the cerebrum and cerebellum and their functions are encoded within the physical brain. That is infused within that divinity. So you're a spirit, you go before Nyame wa Nyame, you are assigned a divinity, a force in nature, male or female, that dwells with you in the head region. Now you're a spirit with a soul. You're a Sum with an Akra or Okrawa. Now you're a full entity. Now you can be sent back into the ancestral realm and await incarnation. So somebody makes that transition, the spirit leaves the body, they spend about 40 days around the family for a while, then they start making their transition to the ancestral realm. They eventually reconnect with their long deceased grandmothers and great-grandmothers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers and other relatives who made that transition. In our Akhan culture, they say, there's proverbial wisdom that says if you want to know what Asamainda, or the ancestral realm, is like, then consider the dream state. Your body is laying still in a dark place, there's no sound, there's no light when you're dreaming, but then your spirit is engaging in various activities. You're experiencing individuals, entities, sometimes as previous thought patterns, but sometimes you're communicating with ancestresses and ancestors. You're experiencing luminous images and activity, however your eyes are closed, it's dark and there's no activity outside of you. That is spiritual interaction. When you make your transition, it's similar. Your body is in the grave, dark, cold, no activity, but your spirit is experiencing interactions with other entities. The only difference, of course, is you no longer are connected to that body. So after people make their transition, they finally connect with their ancestresses and ancestors. They spend maybe 100 years, maybe 150, it just varies based on the person's Nkrabeya, Nkra, which the whites and their offspring call karma, or they relate that to karma. It depends on what they've done in that past incarnation and previous, that determines how long they will be in the ancestral realm. Then when it's time for them to return, before their spirit is drawn back into one of their great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter's wombs, their spirit is first drawn up to Nyame wa Nyame, given a spiritual brain, given a Kra, a divinity that's assigned to them. And that deity, that Abosom, will guide you throughout your life. And now that you're a spirit with a Kra, you're sent back into the ancestral realm, you await incarnation, and then you're sent into a womb. And one of your great-great-great-great-great granddaughters, for example, grows up marry someone, they copulate, and that energy draws your spirit into the womb. You're in the womb for the first time in 150 years. About 40 weeks later, she gives birth, and you're born back into the world for the first time in over a century. So that's the way it breaks down. That's important because the Okrawa spirituality revolves around the Kra. Adebisa revolves around the Okra, because encoded within the Kra is the specific function you're to execute. We are to live in harmony with our Kra throughout the course of our lives. We're just not here based on ourselves, like every cell in your body just doesn't have its own existence. It's shaped, it's designed, and it comes into being to execute a specific function in an organ or organ system, and it must do that. If it goes outside of those parameters that are established by the divine order, then it creates problems. You have an immune system that will put it in check or destroy those cells so they don't compromise the integrity of the system and proliferate and create cancer and destroy the rest of the body. We're the same way. We came into being, we're designed to execute a specific function. That function is encoded within the Kra. So we are to align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with the Kra. We can find out, are we in harmony with divine order? Which way should we move? What kind of activities should we engage in? If we're confronted with a set of activities, what's the harmonious way to interact in these situations? Should we go in this direction? Should we go in the other direction? Your Kra is always pulling you in the right direction. Sometimes because of conditionings, sometimes because of things we just learned, we've been misinformed, sometimes because we're governed by misguided desire or lust, sometimes because we're governed by malice or whatever. We don't align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with the Okra. The Okra is pulling us in one direction, and then we're making excuses about why we're not going to do that and we're going to go in another direction. Then we create disalignment, and we create imbalance in our lives, and then we cause problems. And the problems can begin to mushroom. Spirituality is about realigning with the Kra. That's the whole point of spirituality. That's the whole point of ancestral religious practice, is to incorporate law and to restore balance when imbalance occurs. So we use the term Nana Som as a catch-all term for Afro-Akhan or African ancestral religion. And it's a term that, and you'll see on the website, Nana Som is a term that we've coined from two terms in ancient Kemet. Na means great, greatness, benevolence, dealing with the supreme being, the deities, ancestral spirits, honorable ancestral spirits. Som means ritual invocation. So it's the ritual service of they who are great, benevolent. It's us harmonizing with the supreme being, the forces in nature that govern us, and our honorable ancestresses and ancestors. So Nana Som, or Afro-Akhan ancestral religion, is the ritual incorporation of law, ritual restoration of divine balance. Everything encoded within the Kra, within the soul, within divine consciousness, within that force that has encoded your blueprint for life. So we get off track, we're growing up, we're developing, we have specific benchmarks throughout the course of our lives. From birth, we have naming ceremony to get people in alignment with their Okra. The reason we give names is to align the child from the very beginning with their Okra, that force in their head region that's always going to be pulling them into the right thoughts, intentions, and actions that reflect harmony with divine order. So when you're given a name that's in harmony with your function, if the parents, as well as if it's a priest, priestess, or whatever, but if you have parents who are ritually astute and in tune, they give the children or the child a name that resonates the frequencies of energy that they were born under. So every time they hear that name, every time it's spoken, every time it's thought about, the specific configuration of vibrations automatically realigns their sum with their Kra, automatically realigns their focus with the function they came to execute in the world. So every time they hear it, speak it or think it, it forces their spirit to automatically realign with divine order based on who they are. The name is a formula. It's a mathematical formula. It's an energetic formula. It's a configuration of sound vibrations. We know that sound vibrations, people can sing and break a glass. We know that if cars are driving by and they have the sound booming, you can feel it in your chest. If sound vibrations can break a glass or cause that kind of energy within you, what effect are they having on your cells? What effect are they having on your organs, organ systems, and so forth? We've cataloged the effect of the various sound vibrations as well as colors and everything else and how they're related to different energy complexes, and this is how we structure the names. Our languages are based on that. Afro-Akani, Afro-Akani languages, many of them are tonal languages. Different tones yield different meanings. So we understand that a specific configuration of vibrations